Investors' patience for AI growth seems to be wearing thin, according to our next guest. While Nvidia is expected to see massive revenue and earnings growth as companies spend big on AI infrastructure, investors are hard-pressed to find returns on these investments. So, who is best positioned in the space? To help us answer that question, we've got Rishi Jaluri, good friend of the show. He is the Managing Director of Software Equity Research at RBC Capital Markets. That's his official title. Friend of the show, just a side title. Rishi, great to see you here. All right, so of the companies that we've seen aggressively spending and communicating to investors that there's a bigger risk of underinvesting in AI, who is best positioned to see the largest return on that investment in the near term?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks so much for having me. Look, I'm glad you framed the question that way because near term, it is going to be really tricky. I would completely agree. It's better to overinvest and underinvest in generative AI because this is truly a generational technological shift and technological unlock. But I do think investors have to have patience. And if I were to say, who is really going to monetize generative AI in a big way over the next 12 months? It's a very short list. In my covered universe, it's literally Microsoft. Beyond that, I have a lot of companies that I think I like from an AI standpoint. I would say HubSpot, I would say MongoDB. However, those are more 2 to 3 year stories and beyond, rather than something where we can see direct AI monetization in the next year. But there will be a lot of investment required, even if you're not a company like Microsoft or Amazon that has to spend a lot of money on physical hardware. It requires a lot of product development, re-architecting, and then the actual use of LLMs themselves is really expensive.
What does Microsoft need to do to convince Wall Street of the argument you just made, Rishi? Because the shares were under pressure in the 48-hour period after their earnings due to questions about the ROI on their AI spend.
Yeah, I think there's really 3 things that they need to do. Number one is they talked about still being capacity constrained when it comes to AI. Over the next several quarters and really the back half of their FY25, they need to show us that acceleration, that what can AI growth look like in that Azure line once they don't have capacity constraints, once they have enough data centers, once they have enough GPUs, et cetera. Number 2 is I think we need to see other software companies develop their own AI modules. We see hints of this right now, but a lot of the revenue that Microsoft is seeing on the AI side is by using the OpenAI APIs. And so when we see companies like HubSpot or even Salesforce or ServiceNow or Workday developing their own generative AI systems using OpenAI, and we start to see usage of that, that flows through to Microsoft. And then the last is we need to see actual usage and adoption of AI in Microsoft's portfolio outside of the Azure line. So really Office Copilot is the big one we're looking at. It's still very early, but I think over the next year, if we can start to see real usage and adoption of that Office Copilot SKU, that can really help the narrative for Microsoft.
Rishi, I remember using, just sitting in, listening to AI Day for a company like Salesforce. I was really excited, and there's so much that we're going to see within Copilots in the B2B landscape. Where does Salesforce and what we're set to hear from them when they report earnings, what do they need to say to really signal to the street that there's the opportunity for them to add on to how they're selling in to their existing client base with this new technology?
Yeah, Salesforce is a really interesting one because by all logic, it should be a major beneficiary of generative AI because they have data, they have distribution, they have a giant customer base. It should be easy to cross-sell. What I've been kind of seeing out of Salesforce, quite candidly, is a little bit disappointing on the AI front. And this is kind of backed up by talking to customers and partners as well, is they really want to see more out of Salesforce when it comes to AI. So to get to the question of what can Salesforce do, I think it's going to require a lot more than talking on the earnings call. It's really going to require, they have their user conference Dreamforce next month and right out here in San Francisco. I think they need to show us real innovation around AI, that they are actually investing aggressively to be AI first, to treat AI not just as a feature that you're adding on, but really fundamentally changing the way that salespeople work. Because that's really what the cloud did, right? That's what Salesforce did. Salesforce changed the way salespeople sold to their prospects and to their customers. And I think generative AI is going to do the same thing. And Salesforce needs to show that level of innovation. And I'm hopeful that when we're out talking after Dreamforce, we start to see some signs of that.
Rishi, we saw last quarter Salesforce had the biggest one-day decline since, I think, early 2004 off of their earnings due to some of the points that you just mentioned here. And you can see there on your screen, the stock's been under pressure over the past 3 months. If we get tough results from Salesforce again this time around, could that put pressure on the overall AI trade that's been driving the market narrative for so long?
I do worry about the results for Salesforce, which they'll be reporting Wednesday, because there is potential kind of based on mixed checks out there for growth rates to come down further. Recall, this used to be a consistent 20% plus grower. Now we're talking about it in double digits. And if it actually drops below double digits, you'll have a narrative shift. However, I think the good news for the entire AI trade is it doesn't feel to me like Salesforce is one of those names that investors are looking at as a hands down AI beneficiary in the way that they are looking at companies like Microsoft or Nvidia or Meta. And so I don't think weak results out of Salesforce would necessarily unwind the AI trade. However, weak results out of Salesforce would make people worry about the macro environment in software, and maybe it continues to be really soft out there.